You could clearly see by the slightly sour look on my face that I was not at all happy about my camera that was now busted. Even using my backup camera, things got progressively worse. The battery life was low, lighting outside was dwindling, and the video started out with no audio. I had no idea. I didn't find this out until I went back to look at the footage for editing. Camera woes. Anyway, before my camera failed and got ruined, I wanted to demonstrate how these camber bolts work. You can see that as I turn the wrench, the cam goes to work, moving the steering knuckle inward and outward, making camber changes. This is used to correct the factory issue of not having adjustable camber. So here's the rear suspension. I'm going to be replacing the top camber bolt. As I said before, for additional adjustment, you can replace all 4 bolts on all 4 corners. I wouldn't suggest that. Only if you're like tracking your car, or it's a race car, would you need that extra additional camber adjustment. But for just an everyday road going car, this will do fine. And so it's just going to go in the top. So could you do me a favor? Can you hand me that air hose? Thanks. So for this, you just same size, 17 millimeter. Thanks. We're just going to take out the top one. This gun may not be strong enough to do it. Oh, it's not. The 17 millimeter, you just like I did before. All right. May have to use a hammer to get it out, but once you get it out, it should be fine. Yeah, see, this one well, it came out easy. And then once everything's together, I'm gonna put it on a machine. I demonstrated on the front suspension how it works. It works the exact same way on the rear. So just to tighten this down, I'm gonna just snug it a little bit so it doesn't move. Hey. Simple enough. Okay, so I've got the car all set up on the lift with the alignment machine, and I got all the sensors and everything on all 4 tires and wheels. I've actually started the calibrations. It's a very long, drawn-out process for this particular snap-on machine. I would have been able to show you 2 angles, but I made a little boo-boo and dropped my Sony AS200V that I was filming with, and I had to switch cameras. Now I only got 1. So I'm now filming from my newest toy, my Sony FDR X3000, and that's I dropped the other camera and I cracked the lens. That really sucks. Hopefully I can send it out to Sony and have it repaired, or I'll have to just buy a new camera. And so I won't be able to show fully me adjusting the angles and them happening on the screen, the angles changing on the screen at the same time. So the only thing I'll be able to do is show you a screen like this, which is the alignment machine. Right now we're looking at the left toe, and you'll be able to see me adjusting the angles on that, and then momentarily I'll come back and switch it to a view that looks something like this. And what we're looking at, this is the rear toe and this is the rear camber. As you can see, everything is in the green, but it's not where I want it. For the camber, this side is pretty much okay. Negative 1.2 is okay. I want to dial this back to 1.2. And then as far as the toe, and that's the toe is this on the bottom, as you can see, the preferred is 0.10, and over here it's 0.10. Right now it's at the max, or close to the max. You see the max is 0.30 and it's at 0.25. And so this one is almost dead on. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit out, but 0.10 is where it's supposed to be. Shouldn't be too hard to dial it down to 1.0. So first I'm going to start with the, this is the rear suspension, and all alignments start at the rear. So I'm going to start with the toe, and then I'm going to move up to the camber. Actually, I'm not going to mess with this one. I'm going to try to leave that right where it's at. So I'm going to start with this toe here, and then I'm going to move over here to this camber and try to dial that in. So let's blow that up, and then we're going to go from there. I'm just going to let the camera sit here, and I'll be momentarily coming back to change the screens so you can see what's going on. While I'm adjusting the suspension angles, I thought it would be interesting to share what type of equipment I'm using for this particular alignment. This is the John Bean Visual Aligner Pro 42 available through Snap-on. It uses 2 laser beam modules in the rear and 2 cameras up front. This is one of Snap-on's more economically priced units, and it's a real pain in the butt to work with. The setup on this thing takes at least 30 minutes, greatly lengthening the amount of time it's going to take you to complete the alignment. The algorithm in this particular machine is not very sensitive, and usually any kind of changes you make to suspension geometry is often delayed or very late, making it very difficult to dial in the exact amounts that you want to put in. So not my favorite sort of thing to have to deal with. Alright, so finally I got the rear adjusted. This took quite a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but I got both the camber and the camber and the toe dialed in where it should be, or where I wanted the actually, if you look here, the preferred camber is 0.6. I got it at 1.2 on both sides, which I think is a fairly nice amount. And then the preferred camber is right where it needs to be. I just want to show you guys exactly what I had to deal with back here. This is kind of a nightmare working back here. As you can see, this rod here controls, dials in the toe, and you have to loosen this nut, and then there's a bolt on the back side here. That bolt actually turns, and it has, you can see this cam shape between these two, and the rod actually slides back and forth like that, so you can dial in your toe angles. And as far as camber, as you can see before, this is the camber bolt that actually does all the work. This bolt's stationary, but you can see it can be kind of difficult to get wrenches and ratchets and sockets back here on this bolt to kind of dial it in, and it kind of took me a little bit longer than I wanted it to take. But I finally got it in, and so we got the rear suspension done, and now I'm going to move to the front. And I mean, this alignment process usually doesn't take this long, but because of because you normally don't have to dial in the camber when you're doing an alignment, you just adjust the toe according to how the factory had the car set up. There was no camber adjustment period. But when you add camber, it's not really that difficult. It's just getting the wrenches in the right place can actually add a little bit of complexity to the process, but with a little time and patience you can get it done. So now I'm going to switch to the front screen. This is the rear meters, and if you go front, you can see the camber here is negative 0.6 and 1.6 here. Now on the front camber, I probably am not going to go any more than about 1 degree. I think 1 degree is fine. It's going to be just enough on this car, and I have to adjust the toe as well. So that toe needs to really be adjusted there. It's a little bit off. So going to go ahead and start on that. So I'm going to start with the front camber first. So this is the end result of all the work I was trying to do, and you know, doing this alignment took me well over 2 hours. And as you can see, the caster's within specs. You got 2.9 max on the left side and 2.9 max on the right. It's at 2.5 and 2.6 respectively. The factory calls for 1.9 left and right, which is just at 2. I'm just going to leave it right where it is. I installed it and it was within specs, and according to this diagram, it is still within spec. It's according to this pictograph, you know, 2.5 degrees on the left side. And if you pay attention to this little graphic here spinning, it shows how to adjust the caster on this particular car. It says remove the bolts, lower it down, twist, put it back, and this little animation just keeps going. And as you can see over here, this will be the front of the car, and this wheel is like illuminated green, and so that's the wheel that you would if this was the left side of the car, you would turn the as you can see, turn the strut mount counterclockwise until you got the right amount of degrees in, or whatever degrees you're satisfied with for this particular alignment. And if you go back and you look at the right side, it does the exact same thing. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Okay, that's the right side. All right. And if that was the front of the car, you would still turn counterclockwise. It doesn't matter. Same thing. Okay. Unfortunately, I was not able to. Very rarely do you get an alignment that comes out like that. And as you can see, I had to lift the car up and down. The angles are probably still 0.10 on the rear as far as the toe. I had to lift the car up and do a few adjustments, and you know, every time you move the suspension, it does change, but it's still within spec. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to film myself adjusting the angles, and I'm not going to be able to edit it to do that, simply because one of my cameras, as I said earlier, I dropped it and I broke the front lens. I'm kind of upset about that right now. It's one of my favorite cameras. The AS200V is a great camera, and I don't know, I set down a wrench or something and it just wobbled and fell off, and I couldn't stop it. It was too late. As mentioned previously, the camera battery life was dwindling and very low, and the scene actually cut off where it ended because the camera died. I went on babbling for an additional 20 minutes or so without even knowing it. I didn't find that out until I went back to look at the footage for editing. The camera died on me once before, but I had time to stop and charge it. I was just able to edit throughout those scenes. Since the light outside was low and the lighting inside the shop was inadequate for filming in low light conditions, and coupled with the fact that I needed to finish the car that same day in order to drive home, influenced my decision not to try and charge the battery anymore. I do apologize about that. This whole video was a mess. It was one of those times where nothing was going my way. I even thought about skipping to show the video because it went so terrible, but I decided to show it anyway. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you guys later, somehow. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.